Merry meet. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. Welcome to tonight's show. This is an episode on the waning moon, shadow work, and releasing. So we're just going to dive right in. If you're here live, you can always put comments and questions into the chat. I'm going to start off by talking about the waning moon, particularly the part of the phase that we're in right now, which is the balsamic phase. So the balsamic phase starts at 72 hours before the end of the cycle. So since the cycle ends on Friday at the dark moon, and the next cycle begins, sorry, my cat just scared himself over nothing in the background. So the new moon begins on Saturday. We have entered that last 72 hours of the phase. So some unique things start to happen here. You know, the waning phase of the moon is great for letting go the whole entire phases, but particularly these last 72 hours. And there's also this natural turning inward that many people experience. And it tends to go against most of society's norms. So we live in kind of a society that's go, go, go. From talking to people I know, even with in the wake of COVID, people feeling like they're forced to go to work even when they're sick. And it's a really dangerous way that society is expecting us to behave, right? So when we have these natural inclinations to turn inward, it's important that we honor those. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're divorcing ourselves from the natural cycles of energy that's going on all around us. And when we divorce ourselves from it, little by little, others around us do too. And pretty soon we got this whole society that's really not in the flow of the natural energy of cycles. So if you feel that you're lower of energy at this time, if you feel, like going inward, you feel like you don't have as much to give, that's okay. I'm here to tell you that's okay. And you want to try not to just push through it because society expects you to. So, this patriarchal society that we're in, it experiences a linear perception of time. So the idea is if you push through it, you're just going to get to the next point on the timeline, right? But we witches and other enlightened people, we know that there's a reality to a linear timeline, like we've learned in history class. We also know that there's a cyclical nature of time. So it's happening both ways all at once, right? And what happens is when we kind of detach from that natural cycle that's going on, so much pain and illness and all these negative experiences and emotions that unfortunately we have tend to get amplified. So, I also know that there are a lot of bleeders in this group. I'm not going to say whether, I'm going to attribute this to a gender, but just if you're someone who bleeds, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about how this relates as well. So in a lot of ways we can connect the balsamic phase. We can connect the entire lunar phase to the menstrual cycle. But this balsamic part in particular would be like those last 3 days of the cycle. So anybody who bleeds on a cycle probably knows that at the end, you feel sometimes anxious, depressed. There's this turning inward, right? So we just see that natural expression of this in our own bodies, and then there's also this expression of it in the outside world. So energetically, the balsamic phase is like that. During that 72 hours before the end of the menstrual cycle, the body's getting really ready to release the uterine lining. In the balsamic phase of the moon, the body is getting ready to energetically release something. Doesn't matter what gender you are. We're all experiencing this. So we can go with it or we can go against it. And so my challenge to you is to really think about, no matter who you are, what does it feel like right now? What does it feel like you could let go of, that you could release? Do you feel like you're turning inward? Do you feel like you have less energy? Do you feel like you need some time alone? Do you feel like you can't be around a lot of people right now? These are all the questions that ask yourself, and then see, is there a way that you can honor this? I'm sure that society can allow us to check out for just a day if we need to. And that's really something that we have to lead by example too. By taking time for ourselves when we need it, we also show other people around us that it's okay as well. And this is a way that we start to heal society, just one person at a time. So I also wanted to talk about in this phase, I'm gonna spiral back in a little bit to talk more about releasing. At the end, I'm going to talk to you how I would use this in my own kind of rituals. But I do want to mention that sometimes people feel a little bit more anxious and worried when we get to the end of the lunar cycle. So there can be more emotions, more fragility, more sensitivity, more sensitive to like what others around us are doing, their own energy, what they say. You might find yourself weepy or a little teary-eyed. All of this is okay. And again, it's just important to acknowledge that it's taking place. And at the end, I'm going to teach a couple of breathwork techniques that you can use if you're feeling this way or anytime you feel this way. And hopefully that will help a little bit. But it's just, I can't urge enough here that this is the time of the lunar cycle to most be aware of your energy, how you feel, what's going on with you, because this is the critical part of the phase where a lot of us ignore what's going on. Okay? So I am going to dive into some talk about shadow work. So I get a lot of questions about shadow work, and I know that a lot of people are very interested to learn more about it. So the energy of this kind of slowing down energy, this energy that takes place at the balsamic moon, is just perfect for a session of shadow work. And this really can go hand in hand with that releasing energy that takes place at the dark moon as well. So usually it's best if we do a session of shadow work first, and then we do some kind of releasing ritual afterwards. And then together, what this does is it opens up space for us. So when the new cycle begins at the new moon, we actually have this space to draw more in, right? More of the good stuff, the stuff that we want in the next cycle, and not be hindered or held down, shackled by all of this energy that the body wanted to release, right? So we gotta acknowledge that, and we gotta honor that. So I like to do my shadow work in the balsamic phase. So right, like I said, 3 days before the cycle begins, that would be today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, are those 3 days. Then the dark moon occurs on Friday, this cycle. And then the new moon on Saturday, sorry. So starting in the balsamic phase, I will start to do some kind of a shadow work session. Now, what I do want to talk about is that there's kind of 2 ways that this can happen. So there is shadow work that tends to be more spontaneous, and then there's shadow work that tends to be prompted. And if you are newer to this method, it's not as likely that you're going to have spontaneous shadow work sessions take place, so it can happen. It usually tends to happen in people who have been doing it cycle after cycle. The body just begins to spontaneously work through shadow work, without your prompting at all. So I am going to tell a little story about what happened to me, and it was strange because it happened on the full moon. So this just goes to show you, even though we're talking tonight about the dark moon and the balsamic phase and how ideal that is for shadow work could happen at any time. So I was doing my full moon ritual a couple weeks ago at the ocean, and I had gotten everything set up and I was ready. And then usually I take some time in the beginning to meditate. I draw in the energy of self-belief, which I think is really important. Prior to magical workings. And while I was there, all of a sudden I was overcome by emotion, which is strange because it felt like a letting go of emotions. And it came to me that there were a few places that I was not aware of, where there was still some shadow work to do, and I was not aware of either of these places. And I cried. It's really important too when these kind of emotions wash over you, especially if you're in a place where you can, to just let go and let that emotion come out. And so I allowed this to wash over me, and it was a really deep and heavy shadow working session on a full moon. It was very strange, but you know, we sometimes we can't prod this, sometimes we just have to allow this to be. Now, for many people, you know, a spontaneous session may not come up, or when they do, you may not even understand what they are. So it takes some time by, you know, setting up shadow working sessions that you've prompted every cycle or every other cycle. You get in the groove and the body kind of gets used to, okay, well, we're gonna do this hard work, we're gonna release something, and then we're gonna move past that. And so this is what I want to talk about next. So how would we prompt a shadow working session? So there are a lot of ways. If you're newer to this, or you just kind of want to get going, one of the best things you can do is use some pre-written prompts. Okay, so I actually put one into the group earlier this week. I think that people understood it was a shadow working prompt, but I'm going to spend some time talking about it. And if you were someone who answered it, I want you to now think about, you know, your answer, and then I'm going to guide you through some questions now. So the question that I put in the group was, what type of person annoys or angers you the most? Now I could have as easily changed those words, annoy, anger, to irk, bother. You know, you can replace some of these words, but what type of person really annoys or angers you the most? And we got some really good responses. So I'm going to read some of them. So there are people who said, you know, people who talk a lot but don't act on what they're saying. Rude, inconsiderate, entitled people. We had a lot of people say that. Lazy, extremely critical, arrogant, narcissistic, flaky people. People who question everything and then try to prove you wrong. We've all probably known those people. People who talk down to others. People who take but they don't give back. So these were all some responses that we got from the group, and these were great. People did a really good job coming up with them. So here's the thing. So if we were in a shadow working session, step one was that question. So we ask that question, and then we really consider the question, okay? Now that's the easy part, because it's pretty easy to kind of look out and be like, okay, that's the kind of person that I don't really like, or it kind of bothers me. So here's step two. This is where it gets harder. So you then truly and deeply reflect on your answer to that question. So you start to ask yourself a series of questions. So why does this person bother me so much? Why do these traits bother me so much? Could it be that they remind me of someone from my past? Okay, so you may not have answers to all of these, but I'm just kind of leading through where we would go with the session. So does it remind you of someone from the past? Why do these things bother you so much? Okay, so once you peel away that layer, then we need to go a little bit deeper. So here's the question that people don't really like to answer, but this is the most critical and crucial one here if we really want to do this shadow work. What characteristics do you share with these people? How or when have you exhibited these traits? Okay, so we really want, you know, if you remember that list I read, those were not good, those are not happy traits, those are not like the kind of traits that we want to identify with, right? But if we think back to how the shadow self is formed in the first place, it's, you know, it's formed twofold. You know, part of it is the rejected roles that we might have taken on as children that just didn't work out or weren't accepted by others. And then two are these negative qualities of society, right, that get pushed off out to the fringes, that, you know, aren't the things that good people are or do, right? So if we want to do shadow work, though, we got to dig deep down in there. We got to figure out what's going on, because what we really see in others, or what really bothers us in others, is a reflection of something that is triggering inside of us or bothering us about ourselves. So this is the hard one, and a lot of people don't want to go here. They don't want to answer this one. So when I've done shadow working sessions before with people, sometimes there's a lot of resistance that comes up. And I know for myself, when I was first starting out, I had a lot of resistance as well. And so here are some of the things that you want to note, okay? So if you, as I'm saying all of this, if any of this is coming up, you want to note any resistance you have to pursuing the rest of the exercise. So for example, sometimes people will say, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, they get in and I don't want to do this anymore. Or I don't need this. This doesn't apply to me. This won't help me. Or usually, sometimes you'll also hear people say like, nothing bothers me or no one bothers me. And so, don't miss me here, because it's possible that you are someone that has so advanced so far in your spiritual work that, you become so enlightened that nothing bothers you. But most of us are still working through this stuff, okay? So you just want to be careful if any of those responses come up, because you want to note your own resistance. Because here's the thing, is that when the shadow self was created, it was created as, in some ways, is a way that the ego could protect you from really seeing reality at times, the darker side of yourself. And so the ego will try to protect you from it and will put up these defenses like this. This doesn't apply to me. I don't want to do this. This won't help me. So if any of those thoughts are coming up for you, just food for thought. You just want to think about, what kind of resistance is this to this exercise? Okay? So like I said, very few people have done all the work that they need to do for this lifetime. And very few people are fully integrated at this point. So there are some people on the path who can create delusions. And while it's true that this tends to happen more in religions that encourage blind faith or acceptance rather than self-transformation, I'm not going to get into what those religions are, but people probably know, have probably known people like this who just kind of blindly accept things and have faith in things, but really don't ever work to transform themselves or their circumstances. So it tends to be more of those people that really get deluded into thinking that there's nothing in themselves to work out. But we all can fall down that path, thinking that, this doesn't apply to me. So I just bring up these things gently, is just ways to think about them if you are having any resistance at all. So don't delude yourself into thinking that this doesn't apply to you, because it is a great disservice to your own growth. And I know that most of the people who are here in this group are here because they want to spiritually evolve. They want to, transform themselves. They want more unity and wholeness. And, they want to supercharge their magical abilities, increase intuition, believe in themselves more. These are all the good things, right? But one way that we get to those is through kind of this deep, deep work that isn't always pleasant. So I want to just tell you a personal story about my own answer to this question. So I ask myself this question a lot if I'm doing a shadow work session for myself. And there's a couple of people in particular, types of people that really annoy and bother me. I've done a lot of work. I've realized that some of it has to do with my own upbringing, like my family and people that I was brought up around. So when people act like they did towards me, I have some defenses that, and I get triggered by it. But there is one person in particular that I notice, and you could do this too, if there's like one person in particular that really kind of irks you but you don't know why, it's worth exploring. So there's this person who kind of irks me a little bit, and it has to do a lot with, she is always asking everybody for money. I'm not joking, like several times a week, for money or for things, or and I don't know her situation at all, and so I try to have empathy towards this. I'm sure she's in a position where she really needs help and she's reaching out and trying to get it, but it seems like every other post is, asking for donations or asking for help or something. So, I started to ask myself, why, what does this bring up for me? And that's where you start to do the deeper work, rather than just reject it as just like, she's this, the other, away from me, it bothers me, it annoys me. Rather reflect on why it bothers me. What does it bring up in me? When have I asked for help? Is there something about asking for help that's difficult or charged or triggering, right? So these are the series of questions that I start to go through in my mind. So as I start to peel back these layers, I'm going to start to discover things about myself. And that's the true essence of shadow work. That's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to discover something about ourselves, like why it bothers us and what it triggers in ourselves. When were we acting like that person? So when we do this type of work over and over, every cycle, or do it for several cycles and then take a break is usually what I recommend. But we will start to have these aha moments, and we understand that what irks us about these other people is actually a reflection of the rejected parts of ourselves. And in a lot of ways, we come into this world, we have both these light and these dark parts of our personalities. But what happens is when we resist them, this is where we create issues. So we can create this illusion that everything's okay, everything's fine. But what we're actually doing is we are not allowing ourselves to become fully integrated or enlightened people unless we can look at all aspects of ourselves. And this is truly what shadow work is all about. So sometimes people say, I don't understand shadow work, I don't get the point. But there's a lot of benefits, I've named them off. You feel more whole, you feel more, your magical abilities get enhanced, your intuition gets, enhanced, your spiritual transformation and enlightenment, is accelerated. All these benefits are really nice, but what it's really about is going down deep into the muck and the mire and really looking at where did our personality come from, which parts were rejected and shattered off. The self wants to be whole, so as long as the other exists, right, there's no integration. Once we acknowledge that that is over there, just the acknowledging itself allows us to come back together. It helps to integrate the whole. And that's healing. And over time, over cycles and cycles and cycles of this, we work through it slowly, and then eventually, real true healing begins. And then at that point, you may say, it's not that things don't bother you, or it's not that everything's okay, but it's just like you're less affected by the other energy around you. And that's one of the greatest benefits of this. So now there are many techniques that you can use to do shadow work. As I mentioned in the beginning, when you're starting out or you just really need some easy guidance, that's why these shadow work prompts are really, really effective. So you can use the one that I said in the beginning, what irks or irritates you or annoys you about other people or a particular person. Here's a few other prompts like, how do I hurt others? Or you can also look at like, when have other people hurt me? And then kind of reflect back on when have I hurt other people. So we really have to acknowledge that we ourselves have the potential to hurt others and have done it, on probably multiple times. And then once we acknowledge that, then we start to integrate this back into the whole. Another question, in what ways am I authentic? When am I inauthentic? Where am I inauthentic? How do I judge others? When do I judge others? What do I judge them about? Who am I jealous of? So these would all be some prompts that you could use to work in a shadow working session. And I would suggest just pick one or two. One's usually enough. Spend some time doing it, and just carve out a piece of time, maybe 20 minutes. Put on some music, soothing music, incense, whatever it takes to get you into kind of that energy, that sacred space. And then you can either just reflect on it, just think about it, or you can journal. You can write down your responses. Okay? So once you do that, then you are ready to move into the releasing aspect of this. Okay, so the releasing aspect works really well to follow up a shadow working session. So preferably, I like to do the releasing right at the dark moon. So if you can find the new moon in the calendar and just go backwards one day, that's the dark moon. And it doesn't really matter what time zone you're in. It doesn't have to be night or day, though I prefer the nighttime. I just basically do the night before the new moon. And I'm going to give you some ideas for how you can do the releasing. So after you've done your shadow working session, right? So then we move into this part, and one way you can do it, I've talked about this before, is you can write down everything that you would like to release. Okay, so if there's something you discovered in the shadow working session you want to release, write that down. If there are fears and doubts that you have about yourself, about your situation, about anything, write that down. And so I like to actually do it in a stream of consciousness kind of way. Sometimes it's just a few things that come up. Sometimes I can cover like a whole page and the backside too. Just anything you want to get out. I like to say this is like almost like vomiting it up. All the negative stuff we don't want to take into the next cycle, get that out on the piece of paper. Okay? And then after that, you need to figure out a way to destroy it. So you can either burn the paper. That's what I like to do. Just make sure that you have something safe. So like the little cauldron like this is good. Fireproof, or a fireproof bowl. Or if you have like a fire pit outside of your house, you could do it there. Excuse me. Another thing you can do is, especially if the element of fire isn't one you want to work with or can't because you're indoors and there are people around you, you can't be burning stuff, you can always shred it. Just put some emotion and energy into destroying this. We just want to get rid of it, right? Because the whole point here is release. We got to let go. So go back to that analogy, right, of a bleeder who is at the end of the cycle. The uterine lining needs to come out. There needs to be some release. This goes for all of us at this time of the cycle, the lunar cycle. We've got to let go, got to release something. Okay, so here's some other ways that you can do this, and you can mix this up on different cycles so it's not always the same. So you can get a ribbon or a cord of some kind. You can spend some time, close your eyes. You can put that energy into it, send the things into it you want to release, and then you can ceremoniously cut it, or you can burn it too. Just be careful, again, always with fire, be careful that you are watching it as you burn it. Another thing that's really neat to do is you could put 2 candles and you could tie a cord between them. And you can think of one candle as being you and the other candle as being the stuff you want to let go of. And then you light them on fire, or so let's light them. And then as they start to burn down, eventually the flame gets to that cord that was in between them. So you tie this ribbon or this cord in between them, and then it will actually sever that connection as it burns down. But again, with the element of fire, just watch that you don't create anything dangerous situations. A couple of other ideas. I love this one. My coven did this once and it was so cathartic. Is you can get a stick that you find and you can put all of your energy into it, the stuff that you want to release, just put it into that stick, send it into the stick, and then break the stick. And we actually did something where we were all standing in a circle, and then rather than hand to hand, like holding each other's hands, we were holding onto these sticks and we broke them, as we went around the circle. It's a really cathartic experience. So you can try that. Another one I love, I learned this from someone in Sedona when I was there, is just send everything that you want to release into a stone and then throw it into a body of water that's moving. So we did it at a creek in Sedona. Very, very moving and beautiful way to release. You can also wash yourself clean in the shower too. So let's say you do a session of shadow work and some stuff comes up and you have acknowledged it and you're kind of ready to let go. You just get in the shower and just let the running water just wash it all away as you release. You can also do this in the ocean if you're fortunate enough to live by the ocean or a lake. Just some kind of water that's like moving in some way, I guess, and you can wash yourself clean that way. But the shower is usually the simplest thing you can do. So those are some ideas, and I'm sure you can come up with some others. But what our releasing rituals do for us is they help us let go of what we discovered during that shadow working session. Or it can let us just let go of negative thoughts, worries, emotions like grief, pain, anger, jealousy, sadness, judgment, just the stuff that we don't want filling us up, right? Because everything that's inside of us, all the energy that we have only so much. So we really want to let go of it. So there's the space to draw in a different energy in the next cycle. And the beauty of this process as a whole is, I'm going to kind of repeat myself here, but I just want to kind of go through the whole little process again. Is, we identify the shadow traits first. We then acknowledge them, which helps us integrate them into the personality. And then we release whatever negative energy is left that we don't want with us. We don't want taking with us into the next cycle. And we do this little by little, cycle by cycle, we heal over time. So one of the things that I'm going to get into a few breathwork techniques here at the end that I wanted to show you guys that can help with kind of negative emotions. But I did want to mention something about breathing emotions into your heart. This is a little exercise that I really love. And I started doing this myself. I just kind of came up with it out of nowhere. And it's so simple that I know that people are going to say that's too simple, that there's just no way it's going to work. But just trust me and try it, and it really can be very effective. So here's one of the things, is that what we resist persists. Okay, so this is part of what that whole shadow work is anyway, is that the shadow self is that part of us that we resist. It's why it's there, right? It's why it's there in the first place, is because we resisted it. And if we resist it, we keep it there. It stays, okay? So if we don't do the work, it's going to stay there. But the same thing goes for emotions. So when we resist them, they stay, and in fact, they also can get amplified. So if these are good emotions, that's fine. We don't want to get rid of good emotions. But when these are kind of negative emotions that are bringing us down, this is why we really want to look at how we're reacting to these emotions. So I kind of did this when I went through a time where 2 of my cats had died. My grandpa had died. It was like 3 deaths right in a row. It just really set me over the edge. I did not know how I was going to overcome it. And so when I would feel the grief, especially after that second cat died and he was so young, and when I feel that grief, there's this clenching up. Just notice it too. Like when you have negative emotions, your body tightens up. Okay, that's the resistance. And you don't want to feel that in your heart. So you resist it and you push it away. But if instead what you do is you kind of recognize that emotions aren't just emotions. They are fluid, they are transient, and they change moment to moment. They're not an actual state that we're in. They're not a characteristic of ourselves, right? They're moving, they're flowing. And if we realize that, what we can do is we can just breathe them into our hearts. So what I would do is I would just close my eyes. And so when that emotion would come, instead of tightening up, I would release. I would get as relaxed as I could. And I would just take a really deep breath. And then I would just let that emotion just move through my heart. And I would let my heart just dissolve it. And it took work. It's not like the very first time I did it, the emotion's gone, I feel better. And it's not really meant to necessarily make it be gone and make you feel better. But what it is your heart chakra is so, so powerful and has such powers of healing that if you just let it in, just let the emotion in, don't resist it, just breathe it in and let your heart chakra just absorb it and dissolve it. Try it, and it does make you feel a little bit better. If you do it long enough, you really can become a master of your emotions. You don't have to be so subservient to them, or shackled by them, or just overcome by them when they move through you. So you can try that. Another couple of techniques I just wanted to mention here really quick at the end are some breathing techniques. So remember I mentioned in the very beginning that sometimes people feel a lot of anxiety or worry, especially during these last few days of the cycle. Sometimes there'll be some depression, other negative emotions like that. And so what you can do is something that's called lunar breathing, or Chandra means the moon. So Chandra pranayam means breath. So this is the moon breath. And so I've taught the double nostril breathing before, and I briefly mentioned this, but in Chandra pranayam, what you would do is you would just close off your right nostril and you just breathe in and out through the left nostril. So what this immediately does is it brings down the central nervous system, and it gives you a little bit of peace. So if you're starting to feel kind of agitated, annoyed, angry, nervous, worried, depressed, like any of this stuff, just try this breath. And it's just, you could just do it for a couple of minutes and you just close that off. You just breathe in and out through the left nostril. It's also really effective if you're having trouble sleeping, because what happens when we're having trouble sleeping is sometimes we have the right brain is active. Our thoughts are our rational, logical self is really active at that time, and that can often be what's keeping us up. So you can just try this breath and see if it helps. So another thing you can do is a counted breath. The counted breath is so simple. Again, it's like one of those things like with the heart, bringing the motions into your heart and letting them absorb there. It's so simple, but it's so effective. So in the counted breath is you will count your breath basically. And you could start with just counting 4 on the inhale and 4 on the exhale. And if that works, then I would recommend going up to maybe 6 on the inhale and 6 on the exhale. Now that is a even breath, but if you want to bring down negative emotions, what you can do is you do longer on the exhale. So here would be a way you would do it. So maybe you start by inhaling on a count of 4 and exhaling on a count of 6. Or you could even try inhaling on a count of 4, exhaling on a count of 8. And you just can find there's no real magic number here with these ratios. We just want the exhale to be longer than the inhale. If we want to activate ourselves, on the other hand, we're going to want the inhale longer than the exhale. But since we're talking tonight about releasing, we want to bring down those emotions. Okay, so you could try that. I actually did it. I was at the dentist yesterday and had a very unpleasant experience and procedure done. And the woman who was doing it, she said, very tight, you're all tight here right now. And so I thought, right, I'm a yoga and meditation and breathwork teacher. I should practice what I preach. So I just started doing counted breath and I gradually extended out my exhale to like 10. So I think I was doing like 4 on the inhale, 10 on the exhale, and it just made a wonderful world of difference. And the experience was a lot better once I put that into practice. Now the final breath that I'm going to mention is called the Sitali Pranayam, and it's a really nice breath. It is good for letting go of negative hot emotions, especially. So like anger, and I actually consider anxiety to be a hot emotion, so it's really good for letting go of anxiety as well. And so this breath, if you can curl your tongue, you'll curl your tongue during this, and you basically stick the tip of the tongue out of the mouth, curl it, and breathe in through that curled tongue, and then you close the mouth and you exhale just through your nose, okay, with closed mouth. Now, I cannot curl my tongue at all. So for people who can't, you could just act like or pretend like you're breathing in through a straw. This is a really good breath. So you can do that like 10 minutes if you want, after like a meditation session or something, but it really just 2 or 3 minutes is enough, and it's really going to bring down any of those hot emotions. And as a benefit, it's actually very anti-aging, they say. So for anybody who's like premenopausal, it's a really good breath that if you do this like regularly, it supposedly staves off menopause, or at least makes the symptoms not quite as bad as people are starting to go through it. So just some food for thought. Those 3 breaths are definitely great ways. So the first one was that lunar breathing, so breathing in and out through the left nostril. Second one, just a counted breath with a longer exhale, and then the third, Sitali Pranayam, so either curl the tongue or breathe in through a straw. So I hope those help. So I am going to just check here. It looks like we don't have any questions. Okay, so I'm just going to spend the last couple of minutes talking. I talk about this a lot. I've been really priming everybody up to let you know this is happening. So my shadow working member, I should call it shadow working energy working membership, is about to begin. So I know I've been talking about it for a while. We've been getting all the details ready for it, and I'm ready to unveil it. In fact, if it's not going to happen at the end of this week, it's going to happen Monday. So I'm going to be unveiling all the details in the next couple of days. And if you are already on my list, so some people have already told me they're interested. If you're already on my list, I am going to be coming around to you. But what I want to tell you is that if I send you a message through Facebook, direct message, it's likely not to go into your main messages, and it's likely to be in the message requests. So what I would do is, if I were you, if you want to, why don't you DM me, tell me that you're interested. Even if you told me this already, tell me you're interested, so we at least start a thread together and we can talk about it, and I will give you more of the details, and then you can decide if you're interested in signing up. So that's one way you can do it. I am going to be coming around, putting some posts in the group for people. If you're on the mailing list, you have a chance to reply to me. So you can also take me up on this, because I am going to invite you, if you would like, to get a connection call with me, like where we would get on Zoom just one-on-one for like 10 minutes. It's not going to take a lot of time, 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to tell you about the program, and you can ask me any questions you have about it. And some people kind of like to get on a call and do that before they decide. So I really want to open that up to anybody who wants one. You can let me know. So just message me, tell me I'd like the connection call, and then we'll set up a Zoom, a time that works for both of us in the next week or so. And you can also ask me questions about other things too when you're on the call with me. So it's just my little gift I want to give out to the people here in the beginning. So I've talked a little bit about the membership before. This is your chance to get in on the ground level before other people join. We're going to be in a smaller setting. You get in the founding member price. There's a lot of good stuff you're going to get, and I made this price pretty low. So I think you're going to be surprised, and you're really going to want to be part of this. And not only that, but you have the unique opportunity to help me as we build this whole thing. So we are beginning on the 10th of September. That would be our first session as a group. If you can't attend live, that's okay. Everybody gets the recordings of it who's a member. And then it looks like we're probably going to do our second session of the month on September 24th. So I'm just going to tell you for a minute, but I'll go in. There's going to be some more videos and some more information about this in the week that's coming as we start to unveil all the details. But what you're going to get with the membership is one workshop a month, one ritual a month. So this is all live on Zoom, but you get recordings. I'm also going to do an office hours a month. So there will be a time when I'm just on the Zoom, and people can come in, they can ask me anything they want about the stuff they're working on in the group. So that's there. And there's going to be some kind of an alignment practice every month, at least one. And this could be yoga, it could be a full breathwork session, it could be a full energy session. So there'll be all kinds of stuff. I'm going to teach you all these techniques that I have used to supercharge my own practice. And so there'll be that. There's also going to be discounts on all future things, all future courses that I offer. You'll get a discount if you're a member. Discounts on any one-on-one work with me. There's a private Facebook community that's just us, just the people in the membership. And there's also an accountability partner if you desire one. You don't have to take one, but if you want one, we're going to match people up. And the model it's kind of modeled in some ways after what we do in my coven. This is a lot of the stuff that they get, though it's based on the tradition of our path. That would not be this. This is we're going to be working shadow work for about 3 months together in the membership. And then it's for those who've done a lot of shadow work, we can't just do this for 6, 7, 8, 9 months at a time. We have to take a break. We have to do something later. So then we would move into some kind of energy work. We could do dream work, elemental magic. So we will decide together. So that's the beauty of being in the founding members, is that you help me craft this, how this is all going to work. And I know that at least on September 10th, the first workshop is an intro to shadow work. I'm just going to get everybody kind of settled in and teach some new stuff that you haven't heard yet about shadow work. And then it's also kind of a get to know each other. And then we're going to have a dark moon ritual on the 24th. This is a ritual. We'll honor Kali and work at burning away our fear. And then in October, we have a different theme coming. And then on November, there would be a different theme. So our plan would be to work through this for about 3 months and then move on to something else. And the other thing too is together we kind of decide what pathway we're taking, what times work best for everybody to meet. And anyway, I think that's about all I had to talk about tonight. But like I said, I'm putting the final little bits of the plan together, and then I'm going to be reaching out to anybody who's on the list, okay? But you can also reach out to me first. Just let me know. And if you definitely want one of those connection calls, let me know, and we'll schedule something in within the next week or so, okay? All right, let me just make sure no more questions, and I am so happy to be able to bring all of this to you, and I hope that you guys benefit from your shadow work session this month. If you don't get to it this month, at least next month you can try it. All right, well, have a wonderful evening until next time. Blessed be.